Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. As today, that which was lost has now been found. We've built our bridges and found a platform to run on. So, nothing left to do now but forge ahead. More seriously though, we cleared about, I want to say 2/3 of the map last time around, so we'll just keep on keeping on. See what else this place is waiting to convey. Though we do notably still have that locked door behind us, so we'll need to keep our eyes open for any key or access code we might stumble across.
What are you gawking at, Iceman?
Merely taking a professional interest, nothing more.
Alright, children. Play nice. I will turn this protectorate around. A desecrated altar to the Omnissiah. The purity seals have been torn off. The data slates with sacred codes shattered. And some of the teeth on the gear adornments broken off. Right? And that's where we came in. So I guess we're going this way. Explosive barrel implies combat or perhaps a puzzle I'm not really parsing out here. We'll angle right for now. Follow the edge of the platform. Oh, delightful. That does seem sanitary.
The Whispers told me how.
This eerie-looking makeshift structure is an altar to Tzeentch. Amidst the revolting totems and twisted symbols dedicated to the Chaos God, you notice a string of 9s burned into the metal surface. Ah, yes, the number of the Upside-Down Beast. I know it well. Also, I notice we're seeing some fresh, or fresher corpses here. Ones that are still clad in their original regalia, as opposed to all of these stripped corpses that are festooning the walls. The crucified body had all its augmetics removed. Judging by the abundance of blood, they were ripped out when the tech priest was still alive. Ah, I see. Okay, so these are just bodies they haven't harvested yet. And then the ones they have are now part of the decor. So I suppose those vats over there are where they're melting down the harvested augmetics. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, as much as any of this does.
The premonition runs true.
The vats, which were previously used to store fuel oil, have been turned into reservoirs for blood. An ingredient for the vile rituals that have replaced the orderly protocols of the manufactorum. Blood? Really? Oh. Ah, Demence Hanuman, I presume. Along with a corrupted rust stalker and combat servitor. Alright, Pasq. Looks like you're up. The tech priest tears himself away from reading his data slate and looks up at you. His respiratory augmetic is missing. Instead, the lower half of his face is covered in deathly pale, artificial flesh. You take note of the multitude of fresh augmetics attached to his head. They seem to have been inserted haphazardly, and pus is seeping from the untreated wounds. I heard your footsteps in the void. You are von Valancius, are you not? Pascal exchanges a series of binaric signals with the tech priest before saying menacingly,
Initiating arrest procedure. This unit is using a fabricated identification code, which constitutes a Grade 4 transgression.
You heard him? Who are you really? Identify yourself. Its white and lifeless lips stretch into a smile.
My name is Demence Hanuman.
I believe it is familiar to you.
This statement is false. This unit stands accused of identity theft.
I am guilty of many things, but not the transgression you speak of. I have stolen nothing from you, my tech comrade, unlike many others who have indeed robbed you. But you admit that you're guilty of other things. Corrupting my planet, killing my people. The attempt on Magos Tarsis' life, perhaps? No. Why would I do that? It was the work of the Maned Hunter.
Term not recognized. Is this a specialized term used by your branch of tech heresy?
It is simply a name that fits him. You must have noticed by now that names are full of lies, haven't you? Pascal Hanuman? Mocking laughter bursts from the heretic's lips. Yeah, that's enough of that. As rightful ruler of this place, I could kill you where you stand, but I'm going to give you one chance to prove you're worth keeping alive. Who are you? Really? I have the right to bear this name. It is my humble inheritance, which I received from Archmagos Amarnot. To renounce it is to betray his ideas. The blessed Amarnot taught us that the cycle must be discontinued, and it seems that I have become his best student. Now I aspire to know all, comprehend all, as is the Omnissiah's will. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we are learning some interesting things here. That does go towards the idea that I floated earlier, that Hanuman is less a surname and more like an identifying marker for, I guess, the disciples of Amarnot, who may still end up being disparate pieces of Amarnot's original mind split up over multiple bodies, perhaps. That really does feel like it's what they're building towards. The Maimed Hunter is coming across as someone who obviously doesn't want that to happen.
Blasphemy. Should you continue these sacrilegious mentions of sacred litanies and heretical perversions of the blessed Amarnot's philosophy, you will be destroyed.
You wish to sound outraged, but I sense your curiosity. I understand. Knowledge is intoxicating. This craving for new knowledge gnaws on me as well. But be patient. I am deciphering a great mystery, and my name became the start of the key. I analyzed the archives and found it in places where it should not be. Hanuman, Hanuman, Hanuman. I kept seeing this marker upon the traces of a great plot, of the deception created by Archmagos Amarnot. No sound mind is capable of such twisted cunning, but my mind is no longer sane. It could no longer stay within the narrow confines of the norm. Each new discovery loosened the imperatives of obedience and granted ever greater freedom. I developed. I avoided the traps of the Maimed Hunter who seeks to hide the truth. But words mean little. Do you want me to show you the truth? His pale lips spread into a smile. Interesting. Okay. So yeah, it really does seem like Hanuman is a marker or a code of some sort, a signifier. And it is also interesting to note that pretty much all of the Hanumen collectively are drawn to seek each other out. I mean, Pascal with us, obviously. Abel was having his dreams. Tarsis was set on a quest of bloody vengeance. Though in Tarsus's case, Demence is claiming that it was set into motion by this mysterious maimed hunter. So is the maimed hunter trying to stop the reassembly of Amarnot, or is it actually trying to facilitate it? Pasq, how would you suggest we proceed here? Pascal switches to Technolingua, his vox erupting in a series of binaric signals. There is no need for secrecy. Let him understand. The heretic nods in your direction with a smile. Pascal glances at you with worry and says in Gothic, his voice doubtful,
Following a voluntary surrender, I will be willing to commute the punishment from immediate destruction to arrest and isolation, for the purposes of conducting an exhaustive interrogation.
Pasq, you realize he's probably jam-packed full of scrap code, right? You really sure that's a good idea? Indeed, tech comrade. Does it not violate the dogma of purity? Pascal says nervously.
Your possible familiarity with matters related to the fate of the Blessed Amarnot justifies this violation.
I mean, look, Pasq, I respect you too much to stop you, but just be careful, okay? I feel like there's a lot of moving parts here we're not yet seeing. The heretic's damaged smile remains on his dead lips. Request denied, tech comrade. You will have to pull what I know out of my head.
You will beg for mercy, but I will grant none. Show them no mercy.
Honestly, much like with Tarsus, I imagine there was no way we could talk this guy down regardless. Even if we had tried to go full diplomacy, I suspect that the truth, the scrap code, I imagine, would have just debuffed us before he tried to kill us anyway. Let's see what happens once we've put this guy down. Honestly, this looks like a pretty trivial fight. I feel like it was bigger back in Alpha. Honestly, I feel like there were more fights here in general back in Alpha. I definitely remember there being more than one corrupted Ruststalker. Though I will also say, I don't recall Demence previously saying anything about the maimed hunter. Which would make sense, I suppose. I don't think most of the companion quests were actually implemented back then. Like Tarsus, I don't think he was in it either. And Abel. I think I mentioned it before, but I don't think you could actually save him back in Alpha. I believe back in Alpha he just begged you for death, or died, regardless. Which was why I was so surprised when we actually managed to keep him alive. Alright, let's do this. We'll buff up Heinrichs, then take out those servo skulls. Oh, shoot. Well. Okay, not off to a great start here. Let's not seize defeat from the jaws of certain victory. That's fine, though. Val is actually pretty low in the queue. He's after all these guys anyway. Clear support. Servo skulls out. And thank goodness. No additional warp shenaniganery. And Cass up next. So with Cass, we will immediately prop up Heinrichs. He's a little more fragile than Abby, so he needs that extra push to really get going.
Isn't this a job for the serfs?
Reel in the Ruststalker. So far, so good. Nerf the Ruststalker. Not sure how dangerous that guy is, but better safe than sorry. Get Pasq going. 6 stacks, we'll take it. And whiff on the swing, but that's fine.
The Inquisition sends
Nice.
their regards.
Oh, snap. Okay. Pretty heavy hit on Pasq there. Mayhaps I was concerned about the wrong companion.
Let's make it quick.
Oh. Ah, I see.
Their fragility has been exposed.
Oh, snap. And down goes Pasq. Melta plus Plasma. Yeah, I guess that'll do it. It's fine, though. He killed the Ruststalker on his way out. And we've got trauma kits aplenty. One of the benefits of just tooling around in winter scale space for a while. Let's wrap this up, then we'll get him back on his feet. Though, yeah, that also really kind of highlights the downside of all these abilities that require multiple turns to really stack and get going. You know, Heinrich's dropped on round 1 before he could actually get most of that stuff set up. Which is, of course, why we usually have Abby on point with Pasq slightly farther back, but obviously that wasn't an option this time out. Plus, you know, credit where credit's due. I honestly was not expecting Dements to put up that much of a fight. Dude basically rolled a crit. You know, you never really expect a Dimension 20. Sorry, I've really been getting into Brennan Lee Mulligan lately. Pull. I really love that little floating skull head. That's like a 90s comic book supervillain. Where did that come from? What is that? I want one.
I'll paint your death in colors.
For the throne's glory.
And we're good. Welcome back, Pasq. Pascal stands motionless as he stares at the heretic's corpse. After a long silence, he finally says in a hollow voice,
I I am taking his neural cogitator. The data contained within must be analyzed to supplement the catechism of maintenance and operation.
Pasq, yeah, I've got to say, normally I respect your opinion, but that really feels like a bad idea. You saw it. This guy was pretty full of scrap.
Request denied. The value of the data justifies the risk.
Pascal leans over the corpse, activating the sampling tool on one of his mechadendrites, and plunges it into the tangle of augmetics, covering the heretic's skull. Alright, fair enough. Yeah, like I said, I'm fairly certain there was nothing we could really do to stop him. This all feels pretty preordained. Let's get those ribs patched. There we go. Slightly bumpier than I would have liked, but this too shall pass. Let's see what that nets us. A mishmash of steel, wire, and augmentations, shaped by some madman into an unknown and frightening monstrosity.
I always have a backup plan.
Mizoa pattern plasma gun. And portable cogitator, plus 10 logic. Ooh. You know what? We are at the point where I don't feel like we're really getting much use out of this target designator. We're not exactly hurting on logic, but that plus 10 is pretty tempting. We haven't needed it just yet, but, you know, always nice to stay ahead of that skill curve.
Is there money to be made?
Assorted cargo. Oh, here we go. The curved parts appear foreign compared to the orderly geometry of the manufactorum. The many holes and fasteners indicate that each component serves as but a single part of some wicked design. Oh, right, and of course we know what that is. We actually fought one of those things already. That is an unassembled Forge Fiend. The head is kind of a dead giveaway. But yeah, that tracks. I mean, where else would the one on the corrupted tech priest ship we encountered have come from? Set up ladder, you say? Ah, and that is our way past the steam. Nice. Yeah, I was looking for like a shut-off valve or something, but it turns out you just get rung in. Redemption Gauntlets. The wearer's melee attacks made against enemies under the effect of Expose Weakness decrease strength and agility by 10. Huh. I mean, that might be tempting if they hadn't just shadow nerfed Expose Weakness. Nah, we'll stick with the tech gloves. Alright, let's see what lies beyond that daunting plumage. Dark patches can be seen on the floor. They're smudged, as though someone walked through them on the way to the footbridge. Huh, yeah, look at that. Oh, that was easy.
Always keep your eye on the price.
Hey, Lex. How's it going? A small, heavily augmented man in a filthy, tattered robe stands before you. As you approach, he hesitantly looks up at you, his eyes filled with horror. A portable inscriber with a keyboard hangs from straps at his front, and you can see his detached cerebral cogitator peeking out from under his hood. Easy now, friend. I'm Valen von Valancius. I'm here to put things right. Deus Mechanicus! The tech priest decides to take a better look at you, after which he lets out a ragged breath and manages to subdue his shaking. He heard my prayers. I thought I was alone in a kingdom of madness and depravity. Please, save me! Tell us who you are, and what happened to you. Of course. I am Manufactorum Lex Mechanic Zeta 86. I perform the rituals for the machine spirits of Foundry 95, up until we started going mad. Priests devoted to the Omnissiah suddenly started praising the dawn of something or other. They stopped the belts, and then they desecrated the visages of those sacred machines with unholy symbols. Some of them resisted. The others grabbed them, tied them up, and then they turned their implants to heresy. I saw the madmen, my former tech comrades, deliberately connect those poor souls to corrupted cogitators. I watched as they were infected with the scrap code.
And did nothing to stop them. I am recording a violation of the commandment, of thine own forge be a true sentinel. Apostate Zeta 86, your accesses are hereby revoked. Proceed with your report.
The icy rumble coming from Pascal's Vox causes the Lex Mechanic to lower his head in fear and contrition. Easy, Pasq. It sounds like things got pretty bad. How'd you make it out in one piece?
I didn't. They performed the same procedure on me. I felt the touch of the unholy code. I allowed it to control me. I abandoned my sacred post and followed one of the traitors, serving his will and gathering all the data for his blasphemous experiments. I was driven by an unholy impulse coming from the depths of my auxiliary cogitator, where the code had lodged itself.
Idira peers at the Lex Mechanic. The whispers are dancing around you, latching onto you, but not for long. Maybe it will happen yet. Maybe it won't at all.
Before I found a way to throw off the compulsion, I witnessed horrifying heresy. The extraction of true flesh and its decomposition on altars. Perverse procedures that resulted in heretical abominations. I even accompanied a fallen Magos to the Fabricator Censor himself, and attended the unholy mass he led personally. It was a wicked ritual, full of willful deviations and blatant inaccuracies, all to create an ungodly monster in the name of the final dawn.
I'm sorry you had to go through that, Zeta. It must have been awful. But you do seem to have fared better than most of your ilk. How did you throw off the compulsion? The Lex Mechanic gestures at the wires and connectors spilling out from under his hood.
Praise the gifts of the Omnissiah. I managed to disconnect my external cogitator, which I used for primary data processing. The machine is corrupted. The scrap code is locked inside it, like a beast in a cage. But anyone who tries to look inside will fall victim to the heretical program. My primitive brain has been marked by corruption. I still see their silhouettes, hear their interference. I sense the malfunctions in my augmetics, but I was still saved from the great sacrifice. Oh, blessed are the workings of the Omnissiah and his benediction that shelters the weak from evil.
Heinrichs tenses ever so slightly at the Lex mechanic's words. You see his hand casually stray to the handle of his weapon. But the interrogator is in no hurry to act. Easy, Heinrichs. I've got this. You mentioned a monster. You're talking about a forge fiend.
No, not those constructs that are melted down in furnaces and sent into the depths of the manufactorum. It is some kind of semblance of a cogitator, a nightmarish parody of a sacred machine, powered not by the Omnissiah's grace, but by the unholy spirit and life force of the unfortunates imprisoned on the lower levels. I don't know much, except that the fabricator censor saw that machine as special. It was special to him, and to the crazies who defiled the Omnissiah's abode with their obscene blasphemy. For the final ritual, he even called upon one of the Astartes heretics who arrived at the manufactorum after the start of the uprising. He did something terrible. And only after that were they able to switch the machine on.
Astartes, that's Chaos Space Marines.
It is a true abomination. Even standing near it is unbearable. I believe that even those who have been deprived of the Omnissiah's grace still feel its influence on them. Its monstrous power utilized for unholy computations and chaotic calculations. Whatever that cogitator might spew at the end of its cycle, no righteous soul should accept its heinous offerings.
Duly noted. Your comrades, the ones who were corrupted by the scrap code, what did it make them do?
They acted like the grace of the Omnissiah had left them entirely, replacing free thought and progress with blackest corruption. I witnessed them desecrating structures blessed by the fabricator censor himself, though what do the blessings of that rotten traitor count for now? Like men possessed, they sat upon the sacred instruments and assembled shells and nodes that didn't match any diagram or blueprint I'd ever seen. Sacrilege.
And what about other survivors?
The lay servants of the main units. They live in isolated segments under the sacred machine halls. I heard they were locked in there after the takeover. Then my crazed brethren changed the system for disposing of slag waste and covered the machines in cursed symbols.
The Lex mechanic hesitates.
After they started the cogitator, they dragged the survivors out of the segments under the machine halls. Well, what the survivors had turned into.
You demonstrate exceptional powers of observation and recall for someone who just happened to survive.
I'm a Lex mechanic. Gathering data is the purpose of my existence. That's even what they used me for.
He trails off, belatedly understanding the subtext of the interrogator's words.
They used me against my will. The scrap code turns everyone into their slaves. Before I rid myself of the cogitator, I was forced to serve alongside those who perpetrated these atrocities and witnessed their obscenities.
Something on your mind, Heinrichs? The interrogator tilts his head. Servant of the Omnissiah, I must know more. About the final dawn, the fabricator censor, his mass, and about this machine as well.
I could give you the coordinates, but
The Lex mechanic drops his head.
even though I was present for many blasphemies committed by those heretics, all the details that were captured and processed by my true flesh are in the augmetic that was corrupted by the scrap code. I'm convinced that if I hadn't fought off that foreign compulsion in time, I would have been doomed. The corruption would have spread to my biological cogitator as well.
The Lex mechanic taps a finger on the device hanging from his ear on several wires.
I swear that no devout tech priest should come into contact with what's hidden in that once sacred device.
Heinrich's expression shifts as he stares intently at the disconnected implant and the still intact connectors protruding from under the Lex mechanic's collar. The corner of his mouth twitches involuntarily. Heinrichs. Zeta, tell me, can the cogitator be connected to a separate device? Something we could safely view that data on? The Lex mechanic shakes his head in reproach.
Even if the very idea of exposing a holy machine to the scrap code wasn't profane in itself, my augmetics are not universally compatible. They cannot be connected to another machine spirit. They were created to interact within the system of my true flesh, to innervate my compulsor unit and output data via the inscriber. Once I am safe, I swear that I will immediately perform a cleansing rite and destroy...
In other words, there is only one way to extract the data stored in the cogitator. Heinrichs, no. Heinrichs' voice turns dry. The Lex mechanic could have been privy to conversations that are vital to investigating the cult. We need the contents of that cogitator. The Lex mechanic, who's been listening to your discussion in puzzlement, finally understands what is going to happen to him, and he begins to back away in fear.
No, anything but that. I'll die. No, it'll be worse than that. I'll succumb to the corruption. I'm begging you, please. I'd rather be burned as a heretic than have the scrap code in my biological cogitator.
At these words, Heinrichs pauses for a fraction of a second, almost as if he is reconsidering.
In failing to offer any resistance against the enemies of the Omnissiah, Unit Zeta 86 lost the grace of his machine rank and was recategorized as a resource of the Manufactorum. The defilement and torment of said resource, if committed to advance the struggle against heresy, will not be deemed an apostasy or malefaction against a living soul. Upon expiry of the unit's utility, disposal is recommended.
Pasq, buddy, come on. Juliet watches the scene unfold with something that can be described as fascination, practically spellbound. How easily you commit your kin to a demise worse than death. She glances at Pascal. And how swiftly you are to dismiss them as an object. Alright, people, look. Let's put a stop to this before it goes any further. This man's already been through hell and back, and he barely came out the other side alive. He's already done his best to share everything he knows. You put that scrap code in him, it's just going to drive him insane, and you think you can trust anything he tells you after that? You'll just be torturing and killing a man for nothing. We need to know where the cogitator is, even if the heretic's conversations are unimportant. I must know why the machine was so valuable to them.
I'll tell you.
The Lex mechanic rummages in his ragged clothes until he produces a scrap of parchment.
A different augmetic is responsible for my muscle memory. It has a data storage too. I remember where I walked and what I pressed with my fingers. Here are the coordinates. And the code. It's probably the code to the bay.
He scratches out the numbers with his fingernail and passes the parchment to Heinrichs. Heinrichs' eyes bore into the smaller man's. At last, having reached some conclusion, he turns to you. He is a subject of your world, Valen. It is for you to decide his fate. Well, in that case, assuming there are no other objections, Pascal, I will claim this property as my own. He's to be taken to my ship, and we'll perform appropriate cleansing rites. The chaos hasn't taken root just yet. If he can be saved, then we'll save him. He's done his best to help us despite the circumstances. The least I can do is return the favor. The Lex mechanic is given the shuttle coordinates and hurries away. Heinrichs watches him go, then looks at you. Excessive kindness, Valen, gets good people into trouble. Let's hope that the corruption only affected the disconnected augmetic, and not his soul. Come on, we need to find this cogitator. Yeah, well, if and when I die, I would rather have it be because I'm too kind and not because I'm too cruel. But hey, that's just me. Stabilizer bracers. Plus 10 ballistic skill and plus 25% crit damage. Holy moly. I mean, yeah. That feels like a pretty solid upgrade over our current sniper gloves. Yeah. Urliet's already got the plus 10 ballistic skill helmet. We'll toss the gloves to Valen. We will lose a slight damage bump, the plus 5%. But I feel like that'll be more than offset by the massive boost to critical damage, not to mention, of course, the raw ballistic skill. We already tend to crit on most of our shots anyway. Not bad. Not bad at all.
Keep your wits about you.
So that really just leaves the bottom right corner of the map over here. Oh, yes, and then this leads to the athletics check we saw when we first came in. Yes, I knew that looked familiar. Which actually should put us just shy of the rotating platform. Which in turn leads to that locked door, which I'm sure is what we need that code for. Let's give it a check real quick. We don't have time for it today, but we can at least leave ourselves poised on the literal doorstep. The system accepts the access codes. The clanging of moving bolts indicates that the door has been unlocked. Lovely. Yeah, okay. So we have two parts of the map left then. We have the bottom right corner, which I believe is where we confront the fabricator sensor, Delphine. And then we have this section of Undercroft here. Still a fair bit to do. That said, we'll hit the pause button for now. I'll take care of the usual off-screen bookkeeping. And there are some chunks of dialogue I want to go back and review between episodes, just to study a few of the details I kind of glossed over the first time through. But we will pick up here next time. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Eerie B23, Revenant, Alois, Dragon Matrix 7, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Kazorm, Mark Giemza, Nathan Welch Jr., OverlordPherom, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Tomasz Piątkowski, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.
Merely taking a professional interest, nothing more.